Future faking. When a narcissist talks about your future together, they're not planning, they're manipulating. Future faking is when they make elaborate promises about things they have zero intention of following through on. The dream vacation you'll take together, the business you'll start, meeting their family at the holidays, moving in together. It all sounds genuine because they sell it with enthusiasm and detail. They'll even bring it up repeatedly, adding layers to the fantasy. Here's what's actually happening. They're creating emotional investment without any real commitment. Your brain responds to these promises the same way it responds to actual future events. You start planning around them, adjusting your life to accommodate this future that exists only in their words. The psychological mechanism here is powerful. They're hijacking your reward system, giving you the dopamine hit of anticipation without any of the actual follow-through. What this means in practical terms is you stay engaged, compliant, and hopeful while they get exactly what they want from you in the present moment. Here's how you combat this. Start evaluating actions versus words exclusively. When they make a promise, set a mental checkpoint. If there's no concrete action within a reasonable time frame, that's your answer. Demand actual steps, not just talk. Real plans have timelines, logistics, and follow-through. Fantasy has enthusiasm and zero execution. Reactive abuse? This one's sinister because it turns you into the villain of your own story. Reactive abuse is when a narcissist deliberately provokes you, pushes every button they've carefully mapped out, and waits for you to finally snap. Then they use your reaction as proof that you're the unstable one, the abusive one, the problem in the relationship. They'll stay calm while you're upset, reasonable while you're angry, and collected while you're losing it. And to anyone watching, you look like the aggressor. Here's the psychological trap they've been escalating for a while, doing things they know hurt you, crossing boundaries they're fully aware exist, all while maintaining plausible deniability. Then when you react with anger or frustration or any emotion that looks disproportionate to that specific moment, they've got their evidence. They'll even record your reaction, show it to others, use it to justify their own behavior or paint themselves as your victim. What makes this particularly damaging is it makes you doubt yourself. Maybe you are too sensitive, maybe you are overreacting, maybe you're the actual problem, you're not. Here's how you combat it. First, gray rock method, give them nothing to work with emotionally. Flat responses, minimal reaction, zero engagement with provocations. Second, document the pattern. Write down what happened before your reaction. The context matters. Third, recognize the setup when it's happening. If you feel like you're being pushed toward an explosion, that's intentional. Disengage before you react. Leave the room, end the conversation, remove yourself physically. Don't give them the footage they're looking for. Triangulation. Narcissists don't do one-on-one relationships well. They need an audience, competition, and chaos. Triangulation is when they pull other people into your relationship dynamic to create jealousy, validate themselves, or destabilize you. It shows up in multiple ways. They'll compare you unfavorably to an ex, a coworker, a friend. They'll flirt with someone in front of you and watch your reaction. They'll relay what other people supposedly said about you, always something that makes you feel insecure or defensive. Or they'll position themselves as the reasonable middle person between you and someone else, creating conflict where none existed. The psychological goal here is control through insecurity. When you're worried about competition or what others think, you're not focused on their behavior. You're trying to prove yourself, win them back, or defend your position. It also isolates you. If they've convinced you that other people see you negatively, you're less likely to reach out for support or outside perspective. And when they turn people against you, they're building a network that validates their version of reality. Here's your combat strategy. Refuse to engage with secondhand information. If someone supposedly said something about you, go directly to that person. Most of the time, it's a lie or a distortion. Recognize the pattern when they're constantly bringing up other people to make you feel less than. That's intentional. Maintain your own independent relationships. Don't let them be your only connection to your social circle. And when you spot triangulation happening, name it. Call it out directly. Narcissists rely on you not seeing the game they're playing. DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. There's an acronym you need to know. DARVO. Deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. It's the predictable sequence narcissists use when you confront them about something they did, you bring up a legitimate concern or boundary violation, and instead of accountability, you get a 3-step deflection. First, they deny. It didn't happen, you're remembering wrong, you're exaggerating. Second, they attack. They go after your character, your credibility, your motives for bringing it up. You're too sensitive, you're crazy, you're trying to start a fight. Third, they reverse it. Suddenly they're the victim and you're the offender. They're hurt that you would accuse them. They're the ones who've been dealing with your behavior. They're the ones who deserve an apology. The confusion this creates is the point. You went into the conversation trying to address something they did, and somehow you're now defending yourself against accusations you didn't see coming. The goal is to make confrontation so exhausting and disorienting that you stop trying. Here's how you combat DARVO. Stay focused on the original issue. When they deny, don't get pulled into arguing about facts. When they attack, don't defend yourself against the countercharges. That's a trap. When they reverse, recognize it immediately. The conversation just flipped, and that's intentional. Your best move is often to disengage entirely when you spot the pattern. You're not going to get accountability from someone using this tactic. Document what happened, trust your reality, and stop expecting them to admit wrongdoing. They won't. Love bombing. In the beginning, it feels like you've met someone who finally gets you. The attention is overwhelming. The affection is intense. The future talk starts immediately. Love bombing is the excessive, over-the-top display of affection and attention that narcissists use in the early stages of a relationship. It's not genuine connection. It's a calculated strategy to create artificial intimacy, obligation, and emotional dependence before you've had time to see who they actually are. They're texting constantly, buying extravagant gifts, making grand gestures, talking about soulmates and destiny. It feels incredible because your brain is getting flooded with dopamine, oxytocin, all the neurochemicals associated with falling in love. But it's happening at a pace that doesn't match the actual depth of your connection. Here's what's really going on. They're manufacturing an addiction. The intensity creates a baseline expectation in your brain. When they inevitably pull back later, the withdrawal feels devastating. You'll do anything to get back to that initial high. That's the leverage they're building. The excessive attention also makes you feel indebted. They've given so much, been so attentive. How can you question them or set boundaries now? Here's how you combat love bombing. Pace relationships naturally. If someone's intensity feels mismatched to how long you've actually known them, trust that discomfort. Real intimacy builds over time with consistent behavior, not explosive gestures. Watch for intensity without substance. Grand declarations mean nothing without follow-through. And maintain your boundaries despite the pressure. If someone's pushing for commitment, access, or information faster than feels comfortable, slow it down deliberately. People who respect you will respect your pace. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, I post content like this regularly. Consider subscribing so you don't miss future videos. Thanks. Word salad. Have you ever been in an argument with a narcissist and felt like your brain was short-circuiting? Like you couldn't quite pin down what they were saying or follow the logic, but you also couldn't articulate why? That's word salad. It's circular arguments, constant topic switching, contradictory statements within the same conversation, and deliberate confusion designed to exhaust your logical mind. They'll start with one accusation, jump to something unrelated from 3 years ago, deny something they said 5 minutes earlier, twist your words into meanings you never intended, and somehow end the conversation with you apologizing for things you didn't do. The psychological mechanism here is cognitive overload. Your brain is trying to make sense of information that doesn't make sense. You're trying to logic your way through an illogical conversation. That's the trap. The more you try to clarify, correct, or follow their reasoning, the deeper you get pulled into the chaos. And while you're spinning trying to understand, they've successfully avoided accountability for whatever you originally confronted them about. Here's why trying to make sense of it fails. There's nothing to make sense of. It's not confusion, it's strategy. Here's how you combat word salad. First, recognize you're not crazy. If a conversation feels incomprehensible, trust that. Second, disengage from circular conversations immediately. The moment you realize you're going in loops, stop. You're not going to reach clarity. Third, demand written communication for important topics. It's harder for them to use word salad in text because the contradictions become obvious. And fourth, stop trying to logic your way through. You can't reason with deliberately unreasonable communication. Hoovering. You finally got out. You set boundaries. You went no contact, and then they come back. Hoovering is named after the vacuum brand because that's exactly what they're doing, sucking you back in. The timing is never random. They reach out when they sense you're healing, moving on, or when they need something from you. The tactics vary, but the goal is the same. Get you re-engaged. Sometimes it's an apology. They've changed. They've been in therapy. They finally understand what they did wrong. Sometimes it's an emergency. They need your help. They're in crisis. No one else understands like you do. Sometimes it's nostalgia. Remember that trip we took? I was thinking about that inside joke we had. Sometimes it's promises of change backed by just enough action to seem credible. The psychological pull here is powerful because part of you wants to believe them. You invested time, emotion, maybe years into this relationship. The idea that it could work if they've actually changed is tempting. Here's the reality. Real change takes time, consistency, and usually happens away from the relationship, not as a strategy to get back into it. Here's how you combat hoovering. First, expect it. It's not a question of if, it's when. Being prepared mentally makes it easier to resist. Second, block all channels of communication. If they can't reach you, they can't hoover you. Third, prepare your support system in advance. Tell trusted friends you're going no contact and might need reinforcement when the hoovering starts. Fourth, remember why you left. Write it down if you need to. When the nostalgia or promises hit, reread your own reasons. And fifth, no contact means no contact, not even to tell them to stop contacting you. Any response is engagement. Radio silence is your only effective strategy. Gaslighting. You remember something happening, they tell you it didn't. You felt hurt by something they said, they tell you that's not what they meant, and you're too sensitive. You saw them do something. They convince you that you misunderstood what you saw. Gaslighting is the deliberate denial of your reality to make you question your own memory, perception, and ultimately, your sanity. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a subtle escalation over time. Small denials that seem reasonable. Maybe you did misremember that detail. Maybe you are being too sensitive about that comment. But over time, the denials get bigger and your confidence in your own perception gets smaller. The reason it works is because it targets something fundamental. Your ability to trust yourself. When you can't trust your own memory or judgment, you become dependent on their version of reality. That's the goal. Once you're questioning yourself constantly, they have complete control over the narrative of your relationship and your life. Here's how you combat gaslighting. First, trust your perception. If you felt something, you felt it. Feelings aren't up for debate. Second, keep records. Document conversations, save texts, write down what happened when it happened. Your past self can validate your present reality. Third, maintain outside perspective. Talk to trusted friends or family about what's happening. Gaslighting works in isolation. When you have other people confirming that, yes, what you're experiencing is real, it's harder for the gaslighter to destabilize you. And fourth, name the tactic when you see it. Say it out loud. You're gaslighting me. Calling it what it is takes away some of its power. Silent treatment. This isn't someone taking space to cool down. This is weaponized silence. The silent treatment is when a narcissist deliberately withdraws all communication and emotional presence as punishment for something you did, said, or refused to do. They're not processing their feelings, they're punishing you. It shows up as complete shutdown. They won't talk to you, acknowledge you, respond to attempts at communication, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. The message is clear, you've done something wrong and you're being emotionally abandoned until you fix it, usually by apologizing, backing down, or giving them what they want. The psychological impact here is significant because humans are wired for connection. Emotional withdrawal triggers abandonment fears, anxiety, and an urgent need to repair the connection. That urgency is what they're counting on. You'll do whatever it takes to end the silence, which usually means accepting blame you don't deserve or tolerating behavior you shouldn't. The power dynamic is clear. They control when the relationship exists. Here's how you combat the silent treatment. First, don't chase. As hard as it is, resist the urge to keep reaching out, apologizing, or trying to fix something you didn't break. That reinforces the tactic. Second, maintain your own life. Keep doing what you normally do. Don't put everything on hold, waiting for them to decide to talk to you again. Third, set a boundary about communication. Healthy relationships don't include days of deliberate silence as punishment. If they can't communicate like an adult, that's information. And fourth, recognize it as manipulation, not legitimate need for space. Someone who genuinely needs space will tell you that. Someone giving you the silent treatment wants you to hurt. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing so you don't miss future uploads. Thanks for watching.